And good morning. It's time for the Mike Hewitt Show, brought to you by Renegade River in Spring Lake. And here is your host, Mike Hewitt.
Hey, good morning. Tell you ever have one of those mornings where everything that could possibly get in your way got in your way? I started out this morning on my way to get here, and I like to get to the station like 40 minutes early and get my head on straight and get settled and an extra tall cup of coffee. So I'm the very first obstacle I encounter is at the end. I live on a private driveway. There's 5 or 6 houses. It's an old dirt road out in the country, and the very first obstacle I encounter is there's a teenager that lives beyond my house. Of course, he is absolutely buried. So the first thing I need to do before I can get going is to get this fella out of the way. And then one thing after another, all the way down the road, and finally I get here. And folks, I'm glad to have made it today. It was one of those nerve-wracking mornings, but I am ready. I've got a handful of things we're going to be going over. I've got a guest on the line, and Joyce Shaffer is a country singer and a bit of a patriot. Is that right, Joyce?
That's right.
Hey, welcome to the Mike Hewitt Show, Joyce.
Thank you so much. Thanks for having me.
Listen, you've got some very, very good music. The other evening I spent a good hour on YouTube, folks. You can find Joyce Shaffer. I spent a good hour listening to your music, watching some videos that you've got put together. You and I share some common politics. I'm betting you knew that, though.
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Well, you've got some sense, so you've got to share the good politics.
I like it. Now, you tell me something. I don't know how old you are, and I'm not trying to ask that. I read a bio that you grew up in the 60s. Is that right?
That's right. I'm older than dirt.
Okay. Well, tell me something. This is something I often say. Tell me if I'm wrong. I have often said that the America I grew up in doesn't really exist anymore. It has changed so profoundly. Listen, am I being sensational, or do you think that I'm right, Joyce?
I think you're right, but I wouldn't say changed. I wouldn't use the past tense. I would say changing. There's still enough of us around that knows what America is truly about, that if we can awaken people and say, do you really want your streets that unsafe for your children? Do you really want Uncle Sam looking over your shoulder and slapping your wrist at every move? Do you really want our borders open so that just whoever or whatever can come in? We should treat our country like we do our home. And there's enough of us left that understand that we're far from being counted out.
Joyce Shaffer, you're sounding a little bit like a Tea Partier.
I am a Tea Partier. I'm a patriot.
Wait a minute. Now, the media tells me the Tea Party is dead. What are you trying to tell me, Joyce?
Well, I don't know what the media is sniffing before they go on the air. But
I think what they're trying to do is create their own, because they're very good at that, by the way, is that they will tell folks something is enough until whatever it is. And we watched in the presidential primary back in 2012, where each time they would anoint one of the Republican primary candidates. They'd say, so-and-so is the new front runner, and then they'd destroy him. And as soon as they were finished destroying him, they would anoint somebody else as the front runner and then destroy that person. And they did it to the point where it was sad, but it got comical. And it isn't so much the media that I take issue with, but rather the people that follow along with that. To your point, I wish folks would wake up and pay a little bit closer attention.
Well, see, that's my whole purpose in life. I've raised trouble most of my life, so I've had lots of practice, and I just really enjoy nailing a liberal to the wall with facts. The only thing that they can say is you're racist, you're hysterical, you're a terrorist. They just don't want to do their own thinking. They're lazy people that don't want to do their own thinking, and when the Gestapo come after them, then they'll wish they had us. So I'm trying to get them woke up before that happens.
When you say Gestapo, I smile a little bit because To me, the left is no longer the left. And in fact, I use the word often to describe myself by definition. I have to make sure I preface it by saying I am a classical liberal. Thomas Jefferson was a liberal by definition. The new left in America is not leftist, it's fascist, because it insists on advancing its ideology whether you agree with it or not. And that's by force. So, and it's really kind of a dangerous circumstance that's being created around us. Joyce, do you ever listen to progressive liberal radio?
No.
I do. That's probably why I've got a big bald spot on top of my head. I'm turning my hair out, but I do listen to it. And it's funny because they'll say the exact same thing you just said, but they're saying about us. The right, the extreme right, the uber right, whatever verbiage they want to, or description they want to use or assign to us, they don't believe in science, and then they'll talk about global warming. They don't, and of course the latest thing is the vaccination issue about whether parents ought to be able to pass or whether the government should force a parent to vaccinate children. And that particular topic aside, what I find disturbing is that the left has become socialist, and socialism by definition is the politics of force. And those things I find fearsome for my grandkids. Not for me. I'm old enough now that I could really hit coast and move on. But I've got 9 grandkids, and that's kind of what keeps me in the arena, for lack of better words.
Well, I have 17 grandchildren, and I have 14
Wow.
greats.
Wow.
So I'm staying in the arena. As a matter of fact, I have a plan. I may be running for president. I haven't really decided yet.
Well, would you be an independent, a Republican, or a Democrat, Joyce? What constitution?
I'd be a patriot.
Patriot. Okay. God bless
I'm going to
you.
run on the Patriot ticket, and my motto is going to be, I don't know a damn thing, but so what? We got a president in the White House. It's the biggest joke. I call him the Mad Hatter.
Yeah.
You know, the man can't tell the truth. And that's what I'm saying. If people would run their household the way we run our government, there would be no households.
Yeah, I've often said I wish our Congress before they took office were forced to go through a Dave Ramsey course. Okay.
Yes. Yes.
They don't have a lick of sense when it comes to. But frankly, the difference is if even we can even kind of assign this to our own life growing up. When we've had to work for money, when it's our money, it reminds me of my daughters when they were very young. They'd say, "But Dad, I had to spend my money on that," as if their money had more value than my money. And so I always apply that rationale out whenever I think of Congress or the president. By the way, regardless of party, when they're spending money, I always reflect back to my daughters, and they didn't know they were teaching me a lesson, but they were. That's how people spend other people's money, is that has less value to them than the money that they. I remember watching somebody on the Senate, no, that was the House floor in Washington, D.C., and he was raving with his wonderful speech, and his hands were flailing in the air. He said, "I can't believe there's any kind of opposition to this. It's only $3.2 billion." And I'm thinking to myself, $3.2 billion. It's only $3.2 billion. I wonder how many people that was their entire federal income tax contribution it took to make up that little paltry sum that he talked about. They just don't think with any kind of common sense at all. It's like when they get there, they're absolutely, someone takes their common sense and puts it in a drawer, and they can't get it back until after they're booted out of office. But hey, let's segue a little bit. You do some singing, Joyce. Tell me about that.
I do some singing. I used to have a country western band in the 80s, and we just kind of sang in a 4-state area. And didn't write our own music, and then I remarried and gave up the band and had been out of the business for 25 years. And then Mr. O came along and just raised the hackles up on my back, and I wasn't real sure what I could do. And the Lord said, "I'll tell you what you can do. Go dig that guitar out. I'm going to give you music." And the Lord gives me my music because I don't read or write music. And I'm not the sharpest knife in the drawer, so he gets the glory. I just sing them. and I bring messages to America. I'm the messenger. God delivers to me what I sing, and I take it to whoever will listen. And I sing at rallies, I sing at churches, I sing on the street, I sing anywhere they'll let me sing. And we are on the charts, though.
Very nice. I was looking on YouTube, like I'd mentioned, and we talk about being on the charts. You've got nearly 500,000 hits on one of your songs on YouTube.
Well, actually, it's probably about 3 times that. It's been frozen.
Wow.
3 or 4 times for over a month at a time.
Wonder why that is. That just a glitch, or is it a?
No, it gripes the liberals.
Okay.
Yeah, it gripes the liberals.
We sure don't want to have that happen.
Well, the first video that I posted, the very first song the Lord gave me was America's Colorblind.
Right.
We asked people's permission, of course, before we filmed them for the video, and right away we had a local lady lawyer get my video jerked because it wasn't what she thought it was, and she was in it, and she didn't want anything to do with it. She was an Obama lover.
Okay.
And so I just dealt with her straight on right here locally, and we got it back on.
Now, were you forced to edit her out?
Oh, yes. I told her I'd be more than happy to edit her out, that
Sure.
she was the least of my worries.
Sure.
Yeah.
Well,
I sure don't want anybody in there representing liberalism in my videos.
Hey, Joyce, just for fun, let's pause for a minute, because my man Brian Thomas is going to hit a button and we're going to hear your music.
Well, the Woolpass train is coming down the line. We'll meet you at the station, it's running behind. We better get on board, defend Uncle Sam, or we might be kissing butt in a socialistic land. I'm standing in a corner, I back myself into, searching my soul for what I should do. Living consequences of choices I've made. Thought I was okay till Jesus rained on my parade. I've been running down the back roads, hiding from his law. He whispers to my heart, beats all I ever saw. Asking me to trust him, where do I begin? Running down the back roads has kept me from him. He said, I shall anoint you, in armor you will stand. No one can harm you or pluck you
Joyce?
from my hand.
Joyce, you sing like you sing like a 20-year-old.
I'm sorry?
You sing like a 20-year-old.
Oh, I am 20. I've just been here longer.
Well, my dad just pointed himself. He said, I still feel 20 inside.
That's right.
Very, very nice music. And you say did you write that music? Is that what you're saying?
Yes.
The words that came from your heart.
Absolutely, yeah.
Very nice. Now, now you were talking before I wanted to listen to some of your music, but you were talking about the video. Tell me what was the message of the video that America is I think you said colorblind.
Well, in Colorblind, we're talking about we are one nation. It doesn't matter what color our skin is or what color our differences might be. We should stand together as one, and we are being invaded by a common enemy, socialism, communism, Obamaism. We're in an abomination now, and people need to stand together as one.
One of the reasons I wanted to make sure that we touch back on that, Joyce, is it's been my belief, and I've talked about it a lot on the show before. In fact, it's buried in a novel I wrote, is that the uber left, or the socialists of the left, and it's important, folks, to understand when I talk about the left, I'm not talking about all Democrats, because I don't believe that's the case, but there is a large element of the American left that by definition is socialist. I'm not using it as a label or a sensational word. I'm saying by definition they're advancing socialism. and I'm
Right.
I'm railing against it. But the part that I wanted to really touch on is exactly your point, because how they win is by dividing us. And so they break us down into a little bit of voter block segments so that they can contrive and control their message that will help motivate each of these little special interest groups that they've created. It isn't necessarily Americans demanding to be I demand to be a special interest group. It's somebody labeling us as a special interest group. So if you're black, you're a special interest group. If you're Hispanic, it's just this endless list of people. And folks, the important thing that I think Joyce is communicating, and I surely am, is that we are just Americans. We're not all of these little hyphenations that folks want to label us with, because the labels themselves are they're designed to divide us. Don't let them do that. Are we on the same page together, you and I, Joyce?
Exactly on the same page. You know, if they didn't divide us, we would be a force to reckon with.
I have a federal form. I own a gun shop, by the way, Joyce.
Great.
Yep, and there's a federal form that the government has everyone that purchases a firearm from a federally licensed store fill out. We call it a 4473. One of the questions on the form is ethnicity. It's a part 1 and a part 2. The first is are you Hispanic or non-Hispanic? That question suddenly appeared right after the Obama administration got caught giving firearms to the Mexican cartel. So suddenly that question appeared on the grid. So the first part, are you Hispanic or not Hispanic? And then the next question lists a series of choices of various races you might be, whether it's black or Pacific Rim Asian, or they list all of that. I can't remember off the top of my head. There's 5 or 6 or 7 choices. And I'm always looking for the American choice. These forms,
I wrote it in.
Yeah, these forms never say, I just want to be an American. I'm not any of those things.
Yeah.
And by the way, speaking of Hispanic, I'll tell you a real brief short story. There's a guy comes to the shop, many generations American, but very Hispanic. And he checked the Hispanic spot. I said, you have to check one of the other boxes. He's looking at him. He says, but I'm not any of them. Folks, my point in telling you about that story is we need to stop letting them relegate us into these little corrals that they can control. Joyce, we've got to go to a break, so
okay.
I'm going to take us to a break, and when we come back, let's pick up a little bit more on this topic, okay?
Okay.
Folks, we'll be right back.
Renegade River in Spring Lake wants to buy your used handguns and hunting guns. Renegade River, your hunting, camping, and survival store. Stop in and check out their new and used firearms, sporting goods, Army and Navy supplies, and survival gear. Downtown Spring Lake, next to the police station.
Welcome back to the Mike Hewitt Show. My name is Mike Hewitt, and we're joined today on the line by Joyce Shaffer, who is a country singer and a patriot, but we've also got Shannon in the studio with us for a moment. Renegade River is doing a drawing for a firearm. Somebody is going to win a nice Browning shotgun, but I have to pause on that note for a minute. Renegade River and me personally actually are also taking part in a canned and in a non-perishable food drive, and we're raising these. We're trying to gather as much as we can of these canned goods and perishable foods between now and February 20th. In fact, there are people all across the state of Michigan that are going to be joining, and we're going to be meeting in Lansing on February 20th to see how much we were able to gather. These canned goods and perishable food products are all being gathered to go to shelters that specifically shelter veterans. For homeless veterans. And so we're trying to help bolster them with some food products. So if you've got some canned goods or some perishable food products, please bring them by Renegade River somewhere between now and February 20th. Renegade River is on Savage Street in downtown Spring Lake next to the police station. Shannon, will you do me the honor of drawing a name from that? It's so nice to see that. Yep.
I sure will.
All right, we've got a picture of her here. You can't see it, but it'll be on the show's Facebook page.
All right, I shook it up good.
She shook it up good?
And the winner is Ray Buchema.
Ray Buchema.
Of Nunica.
Very nice. Ray Buchema of Nunica, we'll be talking to you soon. Shannon, thank you very, very much.
You're welcome, Mike.
I appreciate you. Joyce, thanks for putting up with our little public address and our winter drawing.
Oh no, that's great.
Yeah, to me,
Shotgun.
yeah, to me, well, to me, those kind of little tidbits, like doing the food drive, that's really what this is all about.
That's what it's about.
These folks, a lot of them, when we think of how many homeless vets are there, folks, there are a lot of homeless vets, and some of the things that these ladies and gentlemen have seen in battle have disturbed them to the point where they're not able to get back to normal life. And the problem with that is that we can't forget them. The reason I've got this microphone is that the battles that they've fought, and frankly, the reason you're able to do what you do, Joyce, and I applaud you for doing it, but I thank the men and women of our armed services for clearing a path to allow it to happen.
Absolutely. I tell you, our military and our vets are my favorite people, and I sing for them for free. I'd like to mention that if there's any veteran association that would like for me to come build a fire underneath them, give me a holler. They pay my expenses. I sing for free.
Tell me something. How long have you been active in politics, Joyce? I know you've been a singer, and you were a singer earlier in life. But how long have you been? Was it President Obama that brought you to the political arena?
Yes.
Yeah, I have to tell you, he wanted to be transformational, and he has been. He single-handedly created the Tea Party. At the time when he first won, I was about halfway through writing a novel, and I literally stopped. The name of my novel it's completed now, but the name of it is America's Final Beginning. And when he won, I thought, oh my goodness, my timetable is wrong. So I stopped for about 6 months, and then I got my pen back out, and I finished writing it. It's been published, and it's done very well. But my point in bringing that up, though, is that these folks that he represents truly are transformational. I used to think very naively when I was a young person that the left and the right wanted the same end results, but we had different paths of getting there. And I really honestly believe that. And I have to tell you, that's just not true. They don't want the same America that we do.
No, they sure don't. I don't know if you saw on the news today, somewhere out in California, one of the universities, the student body voted to take a stand against Israel, and they actually started screaming Allah Akbar in the assembly, and they shouted down the people with the American and the Israeli flags in the meeting. I mean, let's get a grip, America.
Yeah.
That's ridiculous. We need to educate our youth. First of all, we need to smoke bomb the universities and get rid of all the pestilence in there and get some professors that's got a little bit of sense.
You know, some of the things that fascinate me on that topic of the Ali Akbar and all of that is that there's an actual cultural war being waged against not only conservatism, but specifically Christianity.
Yes.
And in fact, over the last couple of months, we've had a number of guests on that were in defense. Locally, you're probably not familiar with this, but locally in our area, there's been a cross sitting up on top of a hill since 1960. And there was a group of atheists and evidently non-Christian folks that have sought a remedy to have that removed, and inevitably they were able to achieve a vote with a local city government to have the cross removed. There was some plaque that was part of a piece of property that was donated to our local county, Ottawa County, that is, and part of the contribution when the person willed the land to the government, county government, was that a plaque remained there on the property, and it had a biblical phrase on it. We see this all over the place across America, where there are these attacks against the majority faith, for lack of better words. But the irony to that is that the same groups in most cases, or many cases, are advancing the Muslim faith and other faiths. So it isn't so much that they're against faith in the public arena; they're just attacking Christianity. And so, if they think that the Muslim faith is against or an enemy against Christianity, they're going to be inside of that. It's just a fascinating time we live in history.
Well, the Bible tells us this is going to happen. And he also says, no man knoweth the hour that all this is going to blow up. So we are to continue to resist and fight that. And, we may have a lot more time left. We may not. But we are to resist anything that takes away the belief of God in our society. We were founded, one nation under God. That means His values. And I certainly don't, I don't expect everybody to believe like I do, because everyone's got a right to be wrong. However, God does not change, and everybody will stand before Him, and that means the atheist, and I wouldn't want to be in their shoes. I'm highly offended by them, so what do we do with them? Put them in a box?
I got to tell you, it's for me, it's a little bit different. I mentioned I'm a Jeffersonian, and I've said this, and in fact, I have some folks on my side not thrilled with me when I say these words, but listen, I'm secure enough in my faith that, and I always have to paraphrase him, and I'm always probably slightly wrong on it, but Thomas Jefferson, he says it neither picks my pockets nor skin my knees if you say there's one God or 20. Whatever his faith was, there's a lot of controversy over what his faith was, doesn't matter anymore, but whatever it was, he was secure in it. And for me, I'm secure in it. So if I had a person that was a Buddhist on my show, I'm fine with that. If they were, in fact, I've had a number of folks that were Muslim on my show. They were very moderate Muslim. One of them is has been on here a number of times. He's the president of the Kurdish National Assembly of Syria. He's a very nice man. His entire approach to it is literally religious freedom. In fact, when you read their little the planks of their movement, it sounds like Thomas Jefferson wrote it. I salute these people, but don't attack my faith. That's
right.
Does that
That's
make sense?
Right.
Yeah.
You better believe it.
That's how I feel about it. I'm okay with it. I've opined a number of times that I used to go through Southfield back in the 60s going to Henry Ford's Hospital, and on the way there I'd pass all kinds of, down in the Detroit area, there'd be a lot of Jewish temples, a lot of Jewish signage, a lot of, my head didn't spin off. It's okay. I'm happy that we're in a country where those folks can celebrate their faith in peace. And it would have never occurred to me to demand that they remove the symbols of their faith.
The thing is, just because we are God's people, we're Christians, does not mean we're God. We are to represent Him. We are to take a stand for Him. And those that don't believe the way we believe, you pray for them, let God work with them. He knows what He's doing.
Amen.
But we do not let their influence change our nation. If they don't like how America is, leave. I'll buy a one-way ticket for any of them.
I've got a show coming up. I want to tell you a little bit about it and get your feeling on it. And
okay.
And you tell me if I'm off in the ditch or if I'm on the right path. It's a picture of a commuter train. There's actually two pictures. They're side by side. And on the left side, it's black and white. It's 1955 or so, and it shows people on a commuter train, and most of them are reading a newspaper. And by the way, my original push for this was to make a comparison between newspapers and iPads and smartphones in general, because there's a lot in the media now about how everyone's focused on their iPad or their digital sensational, whether that's destroying America or not. So I look at this old picture, and everyone's got in a newspaper, and then I look at the new picture. In fact, it looks like the same train. Obviously, it isn't, but it's the same exact configuration. And everyone is, instead of having a newspaper, they've all got a smartphone, and they're all reading it, and some guys got headphones on, and etc. So in both groups, 2015 versus 1955, in both settings, all of the people in the images were absorbed in whatever their media was. So the only thing that really changed is the delivery mechanism for the media itself. So I thought, there's some commonality. Maybe we haven't changed that much. And that was going to be the show I was going to do. And then I got looking a little bit closer, and I noticed something different that really was alarming to me. And to me, maybe my interpretation is wrong, but for me it went to respect. But what I noticed, or what I witnessed in the picture, was the old picture, the black and white, everyone was very, very well dressed. The men all had hats on. The women were in nice clothing, like business attire clothing. All of the men had they were white shirt, suit, and they weren't all rich, by the way, but they were all dressed because they were going somewhere in their mind. They had a purpose. You could see that those folks have a mission. Whatever it was, whatever their endeavor was, they had a mission. Then when I looked in the modern picture, the 2015 picture, these folks were all in blue jeans and holy T-shirts, and I went, wow, that's the difference. And for me, the difference was one had an industrial spirit. The modern picture did not. One had respect. The modern picture did not. And I think it really goes to a state of our culture that I find worrisome.
There you go. We don't teach respect in our children. I'll tell you, if people want to start changing America back, they better start going to the school board meetings, because that's where it's happening. It's happening right down on the kindergarten and grammar school level, and the respect is not there. They are not told to take a stand for what's right. They're supposed to accept whatever. And, there's a song, you got to stand for something or you fall for anything. And that's where we're at. We're just falling, and we want to be so PC that we'll sell our soul and our nation to do that. And I'm not willing to do that. What's right is right, and what's wrong is wrong, and don't expect me to call it gray.
Absolutely. The dialogue reminds me a little bit of the Abe Lincoln comment, who says the philosophy of the schoolroom in one generation will be the philosophy of government in the next.
Yes,
that's
exactly.
And I think, of course, this is not the example I gave with the subway or the commuter train wasn't the classroom, but I think it's indicative of the culture that we've created in that classroom. Yep.
I wrote a new song. You'll be the first one that I'll tell about.
Can he hear us? Okay.
Yeah.
No, go ahead.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. Go ahead.
This new song is called Patches and Cardboard. And I came from a very, very poor background. I've made the comment that Loretta Land made my family look wealthy. And in this song, I'm talking about how, like a badge of honor, I wore patches on my hand-me-downs and cardboard in my shoes because there'd be holes in them. They were also hand-me-downs until my dad could resole them or I got a different pair. And it says at the end of the song that I would gladly go back. I would give up Mama's homemade bread and the garden that she grew. I'd live on buckskin and beans again. If I could reclaim the freedom of the red, white, and blue, I'd wear patches on my hand-me-downs and cardboard in my shoes. And that's the point we've got to get at. We got to be willing to walk away from all the glory here and get down to grubbing it. And let's do it. Dig it out.
Listen, Joyce Shaffer, we're out of time, but tell folks how they can find you.
They can find me at joyceusa.net and also on Facebook, Joyce Shaffer fan page, and that's SHAFFER. And I have a rant that I write every day. Today's rant is how I would handle ISIS.
Okay.
And I think it's very interesting.
Very nice.
You might read it. But I thank you so much for giving me the opportunity to share some thoughts with you and
very
to
nice.
Encourage people.
Joyce Shaffer, thank you very, very much.
Yes, and thank you for all you're doing. God bless.
God bless you. Paul
Bye-bye.
Mitchell?
Hey, Mike, how are you, sir?
Very nice, folks. We've got Paul Mitchell on the line with us now. He is the chairperson of Faith and Freedom Coalition of Michigan. Am I saying the title right, Paul?
Absolutely.
Paul, welcome back to the Mike Hewitt Show. It's nice to hear your voice.
Always good to chat with you, Mike.
Listen, I'm hearing a whole bunch of news circulating from you this week. Paul, what are you working on?
Well, we established late last week a ballot committee, Say No to Higher Taxes and Special Interest Deals, to oppose the property sales tax increase. We think the ballot proposal that will come up for vote on May 5th is seriously flawed. It increases, it's a permanent tax increase of $2 billion to taxpayers. Frankly, a big part of that, over $700 million, goes to special interest deals, not to fix the roads, but essentially it was a ransom to the special interest folks in order to get to fixing our roads. They wanted their money, and they're holding us all hostage. Our position on it is we should focus on fixing the roads first.
If it were solely about fixing roads, would you be in favor of it?
I think there's an answer to fixing the roads. The House put forth a proposal that in the lame duck session that was revenue neutral. The Senate put forward a version that was effectively a $1.2 billion tax increase, and they went to conference to compromise. It's pretty amazing, Mike, that the compromise that they ultimately worked out is to go to the voters with essentially a $2 billion tax hit. As you know, I was in private business for years. I mean, I'd love to have contract negotiations where I could increase the price 58% when I negotiate, and that's essentially what's happened.
Yeah, I wished I could run Renegade River, my sporting goods store, that way, Paul.
I'm sure you do, but I'm not sure. There may not be laws about that, but clearly, it's not the best interest of taxpayers. Some proponents have said that supporters of the ballot proposal have indicated that we're standing in the way of better roads. My family drives the same roads your family does, and we want them safe. The issue is not the roads; they need work. It's how we pay for them and what it costs taxpayers to pay for fixing our roads, and do we need to really essentially pay off all these other folks?
Listen, we're gonna go to a break slightly just in a second, but when we come back, Paul, what I'm wanting to focus on, first off, what your effort is and how people can help, but the other thing is prevailing wage, because when I look at the road costs, so forgetting taxes up, down, in the middle, or whatever, when I look at how we're actually contracting for this labor, man, it's crazy, it's insane. And so I'm thinking, and in fact, I've said all along, I was approached early on by some folks to say, would I be in favor of a tax increase for roads? And I said, I would if it's still necessary after you fix how the state does business in the first place.
Oh, in a lot of ways.
Yeah, so that's where I want to focus when we come back, if you'll just bear with us through a commercial or two so we can get the show paid for.
No problem.
Folks, we'll be right back.
Be a survivor, not a statistic. Renegade River in Spring Lake has new and used handguns, hunting guns, sporting goods, and survival gear. Protect your rights and your freedom. Ask about their CPL classes. Renegade River, next to the police station in downtown Spring Lake.
Welcome back to the Mike Hewitt Show. I am Mike Hewitt, and we're on today with Paul Mitchell, who is chairperson of the Faith and Freedom Coalition of Michigan. And you're engaged in trying to defend taxpayers against this latest ballot proposal to take more money out of their pockets.
Yep.
Very, very nice. I applaud your effort, my friend.
Thank you.
Are you getting people shooting at you from all directions, or are you getting some pats on the back, or how's the culture treating you, Paul?
Well, you know how that goes, Mike. Some people they fall in a couple of different camps. We've had a lot of phone calls all weekend from around the state of support. I came in here to the office this morning and had 9 voicemails from overnight. So that's a real positive thing. There are some folks that aren't happy about it, and there are some folks that want to be supported but don't necessarily want their name out front because they don't want to alienate some of the powers that be in Lansing. So it's the way it goes. I expected it as we got into it, but we need people to speak up and talk about this issue. And related to the voters, if you remember when we had our meeting in Granville with a group of activists there, we were talking about, I asked them if they knew what was in this ballot proposal, and they all kind of looked at each other. I mean, it's one of the reasons I decided to engage is the lack of information and the confusion about it is important. Voters need to know what's in this thing when they go out to the ballot, and we think it's a mess.
It is a mess. And I have to tell you, I like to think of myself as reasonable. Maybe some folks don't. But listen, my stance on it would be, aside from the fact that we don't want pork barrel politics in Lansing, enough of it is already spilling over the edges in D.C., and this appears to me to be a large chunk of that, to the points you've made. But if I just drill down to just the roads, and I think I don't know what the percentage of the bill is for the roads are. I think people will be surprised when they see the math. But I'm one of those guys that said if the state genuinely needs more money for the roads, I'm okay with that once they've changed how they conduct business. Mm-hmm. And what I'm talking about with that is prevailing wage and a number of other things. And sure. The whole concept of prevailing wage, I can't imagine trying to run a business using politically correct, union-favored mechanisms to drive the business costs. It makes no sense to me. So if you look at the bridge that they're building just in Ottawa County as an example, the bypass down there, they're importing people from all over the state, paying them top hourly union wage, when there's a lot of people right in the community that would love to have a job working on that structure.
Well, there's a lot of there've been a number of proposals made on how to change prevailing wage or repeal it or change it, even change it to make it something that would not be as ridiculous as it currently is. For example, use the average wage for that trade in the state, not just the union wage. The lack of willingness to address that issue is one example of many where we're spending a lot of money at the state level on things that aren't the priority. One of the important things is to prioritize what's important to spend money on. The House had a proposal that was revenue neutral. The Senate had a proposal that was a tax increase, and it was significant, $1.2 billion. Somewhere in there between the two is something that may well work if the leadership went back to that and said, hey, that's what we need to work on. That's what the people we elected to represent were talking about before apparently they fell asleep at the switch and came up with a $2 billion deal. It shouldn't cost us money, and I think voters need to understand that to begin to get the money we need for the roads, we're going to spend $700 million more on other things that have nothing to do with the roads. It's a ransom.
It's insane. It is absolutely not good stewardship. And it's fascinating that, in fact, it kind of worked out nice that part of the topic I had with Joyce Shaffer that was on before you was we were talking about the difference between how people spend money, whether it's their own or somebody else's. My daughters, when they were little girls, used to say, yeah, but Dad, I bought that with my money, somehow as if their money had more value than my money. And that's the way government often works, is that they're spending money like my 10 and 12-year-old daughters may have when they're spending Dad's instead of theirs.
Well, you're right. I just got a note from my older son. He's a police officer in Rochester. His birthday's the end of the month, about what he'd like for his birthday present. And I sent him a message back, and I said, are you kidding me? Well, he wouldn't buy this thing, but, hey, if it's Dad's money, it's cool.
Yeah, absolutely.
It just continues through in life, and it just astonishes me. Eventually, the bill, the best analysis I've seen so far of it is that the cost for each household in Michigan of this tax increase is $800 a person, or a family. I'm sorry, $800. That's real money. I mean, that's meaningful money to an awful lot of people, and we don't need to spend that much to fix our roads. I agree. Let's stop the argument about whether the roads need to be repaired. We're not arguing that. It's what we have to pay to get there, and let's just focus on the roads, not all the other stuff that people want to throw in the grab bag.
To me, it's unconscionable. It is. I don't know how folks can. Not all of these. By the way, you and I think probably both know a lot of the legislators, and a lot of them are good people. So I'm not trying to do the populist anti-politician thing. Yeah. I know a lot of them are good people, but when it comes to this grab bag rationale of getting something for their particular districts or their pet projects, man, that's no way to run a state government.
I wasn't in the room in terms of how these discussions, how it all transpired, and as I said to some other folks, living in the past doesn't help. The reality is, the question is this the best answer that we can come up with to address what is a problem we all agree on, which is the roads? Right. And I think the majority of people are looking at it saying, no, this is a mess. We can do better than this, and we expect better than this. And it'd be great if folks in Lansing spend as much time, energy, and money between now and May 5th finding an answer to this, rather than spend time, energy, and money on this ballot proposal, which I believe will fail, and then have to go back about, now we need to find an answer. Let's find an answer now. Go to the room, close the door, and find an answer.
Paul, I hate to be cliche, but are there any polls that you've seen about where the public might be on this ballot initiative yet?
There's been a number of polls out there, several polls out there, and they in general show that as voters learn more about this issue, they become increasingly disenchanted with the idea. I mean, there's a consensus that the roads need to be fixed. There's absolutely no question. Right. We all drive and we all deal with the issue, but when you start talking about what's going to cost to do that, all the other things that are in it, they start saying the same thing you and I have talked about, which is, well, why are we doing that if we're going to fix the roads? Why is that the answer? I suspicion, and let me preface this by saying, if the initiative focused only and solely on the roads, I would be not in favor of it. Having said that,
I think if it were solely focused on just roads, it would probably pass. But that's not what it does.
I think something would, if they went to the voters rather than the legislature and the governor dealing with it, I think something that was just solely focused on the roads that voters saw as an effort to be efficient and save money in state government to pay for part of it.
Right.
And then we've got to pay for over a decade of neglecting our roads and our infrastructure. And they have been neglected.
Absolutely.
Something would probably pass.
Right. In that regard, the governor is correct.
Yep.
But the thing with that is, though, is if Governor Snyder were to say, we need more money and we're going to do things like end or modify prevailing wage and a number of other of the politically correct way of spending money.
There's the film industry tax credits. I mean,
right.
you and I could get a group of people on your radio show and spend half an hour going through a list of things that we spend money on that we all agree in a consensus, and we could save $500 or $600 million in
right.
things that this money spent on. We go, what are we doing that for? Is that really a priority?
Sure. Well, if you look at the budgets in total, populations went down in the last 10 years, but the budgets went up dramatically. And listen, I'm not putting that at Governor Snyder's doorstep. I think that's politics in general. But sometimes the public needs to we need to, as a popular, reel our state government in.
Well, when have you ever seen have you ever heard in your entire life a bureaucrat that doesn't say we don't need more money?
Right. Yeah, never.
If you ever hear that, write that down, tape it, because that'll be that's just the nature of the beast. But our responsibility of our elected officials are to manage that ongoing hunger to grow, do more, be more. It's just the nature of what government is.
That's like sales tax in the first place. It was just temporary.
Well, yeah, exactly. So many comments on that, many of which can't be said on your show, so I'll behave.
Thank you, Paul. It's an amazing thing. Listen, folks, I'm not fighting back against those folks. I'm asking them to pause and take a longer look at what they're asking us to pay for. $800 to Paul Mitchell's point is going to really ring hard on a lot of families. It just is. That's a lot of money to some. It's a lot of money to me, by the way.
Oh, yeah. Well, and here's the thing: is we don't need to spend that much. I mean, an awful lot of that money, almost 40% of that money, is going to things that have nothing to do with our roads.
Right.
Even if we paid the full amount that people said on the high end we need for the roads, you've got 40% of the money there going to other things. And I'm not saying those things may be important to groups, people may be important to most people in the state. Then let's do them individually. Don't make a grab bag. Don't roll them all together. Don't hold our roads hostage.
Listen, it takes a lot of money to run a political campaign like what you're doing. How can folks reach out to learn more and help you?
Well, we've got a website which is Say No to Higher Taxes, a Facebook page, and if folks look at that, it will give them information to donate and contact us. And we need volunteers just in terms of putting information out as well. So it's not just money; it's help to get the word out between now and May 5th. Very,
very nice, Paul Mitchell. Thanks for the work you do. And folks, just for your reference, we'll have the link to his page put on our Facebook page for the show. So. We're all set.
Thank you very much. Have a good day.
Yep, Paul, thank you very much, folks. We'll see you next Wednesday.
Renegade River in Spring Lake wants to buy your used handguns and hunting guns. Renegade River, your hunting, camping, and survival store. Stop in and check out their new and used firearms, sporting goods, Army and Navy supplies, and survival gear. Downtown Spring Lake, next to the police station.